This meeting is being recorded.
Hi, it's Mark Owen from Moose Marketing and PR, the editor of Punchline magazine, and welcome to Punchline Talks, the business breakfast briefers, where each week I invite a panel of business experts to review the morning newspapers, find out what's going on in their own individual business and their own individual business sectors, and finally, what's caught their eye in this week's Punchline. I've got a fantastic panel, but before I start, I'd just like to thank our brilliant sponsors, Hayswoods, accountants and business experts. Anyway, let me introduce you to the guys. We've got Guy Stenson. He's the CEO of Gloucester City Homes. They've got around 5,000 homes they look after and around 12,500 customers. They've got staff of 180 and a turnover of £22 million. We've also got GETHIN Evans, who's the new communications and marketing lead at the Golden Valley Development. This is Cheltenham Borough Council, the Tewkesbury Borough Council planned 200 hectare development in Cheltenham, transforming the site into the UK's National Cyber Innovation Centre, and also hopefully build 3,700 homes as well. We would like to introduce Patricia. She's the MD of First Base Employment. They've got 9 staff based in Stroud. They've got turnover just shy under 2 million, and this year they're celebrating 25 years in business. No mean feat. Congratulations to her and her team. And finally, never last but not least, we've got Sam Holliday, Development Manager of the Federation of Small Business. They've got around 7,200 members. He's the main lead for Gloucestershire and the west of England. He's also the ex-editor of the Bath Chronicle newspaper. I hope you don't mind me keep mentioning that, Sam. Anyway, let's have a quick look at the papers. This is courtesy of the BBC. We just run through the headlines very quickly. We've got in the eye, UK hit by record hike in energy prices. The Telegraph, new MP will offer urgent help with bills. The Daily Mail, Truss, I'll get you through the energy bill crisis. The Times, Truss plans big package to help energy bills. The Guardian, gap in GCSE results brings fresh warnings over COVID. The Metro, people are dying waiting for ambulances. You've done 12 years and done nothing. Sort it out. The Sun, the Queen will see you new, PM. I think they're all off to Balmoral. The Financial Times, Truss ways triggering Article 16 to buy time in the Northern Ireland Protocol. And the Mirror, who took our baby away from us? Terrible, sad story that. And the Daily Express, cost of broken asylum system urges to 2 billion. And finally, last but not least, the Daily Star. We're going to probe Uranus. I think that's enough of that. Let's start with the paper. Stan, what have you picked out, please?
Well, to be honest, there feels like there's only one game in town, and I'm sure we're all looking at it and looking at the variations of it. I think the eye caps it best of all. I've got the Times here, I've got the eye, and that's the energy prices. And literally within the last hour, they set the figure at 3,549. And probably like a lot of people, I'm confused about what a cap means. If we said that this meeting was capped at half an hour, it would finish in half an hour, but it isn't. I mean, we've currently got a cap, and because my house isn't particularly an expensive house, it's an old house and it's a big house, so I'm already paying well beyond the cap, and that's the case for a lot of people. So everybody's going to get hit dramatically. I mean, the most important thing, forget that word cap, is that we could be paying 80% more than we're paying now. Now, when I think of Guy, and when I think of some of the people who in city homes, I think of people on universal credit, I think of people with low incomes. It's going to hit them massively, but it's going to affect everybody else as well. And even those that feel that they can afford it, are going to have to make cutbacks. And as I represent business, and you mentioned 7,000 members locally, and there's 150,000 across the country in the FSB, they're the people that provide all the services that we need. And if you're going to have to make cutbacks, if you're going to go out to eat less, if you're going to have less day trips, if you're going to have less holidays, if you're going to spend less in clothes, then it's going to affect small businesses across the board. So there's no upside to this at all. And as I say, I think the word cap is very misleading. So some people might get that calculator out and divide that by 12, be horrified at the numbers, and then find that their numbers are going to be even more than that. And this is only the next stage. And I think when I go through, I mean, it's interesting that the Times have got Truss on the front in comparison to this, because I'm not hearing enough from these two people that want to be Prime Minister about this. They're playing to an audience, and they're talking tax cuts, and they're talking about some of the traditional things that maybe, if you're a dyed-in-the-wool Conservative member, that are very important to you. But the vast majority of the country's going, do you realise how this is going to affect us? And when I say us, I mean, obviously I represent the FSB. Small businesses have no cap. So if you think, well, you know, at least I can see there's an upper limit. Small businesses have got no cap. So people who run their own business from an office or whatever are facing 100% increase, 200% increase. We've seen some bewildering figures, and with everything, all the other costs going up, it's a very, very depressing figure. And I hate to start on a downer, but there's no plus point to this. I was watching the BBC News before we got together. I've been reading the papers, trying to find some glimmer of hope. And I have to say, Mark, I can't really find any. This is bad news for everybody. And I'm particularly thinking of those who are most vulnerable, because they're all going to face this awful thing. Do I heat or do I eat come the winter? And this is Britain in 2022. And it just feels very, very wrong.
Never mind the war in Ukraine, never mind the problems over in China. It's just a catalogue of big things happening. Talking about old buildings and talking about, my house is very old as well, but I was over at your place, Trish, this week, wasn't it? It's quite an old building. You've got 3 floors there. Do you know what your price of your energy is going to go up to?
4 floors, and it's like the 4th bridge, so it's constant redoing, reef, etc., etc. And yeah, it's increased massively. I've got tenants in the building, and they're on sort of a fixed service charge as it is, but I'm going to need to be looking at that because it's going to have a huge impact. Yeah,
so do you have to relook at their contracts? Is there a way for you to relook at their contracts? Obviously,
I'm going to have to wait for renewals, you know, the month of the year that renewals to be, and I've held off because I'm a very fair person, but we've got, as you noted, when you come in, old sash windows with the original glass, which is paper thin, so it's not hugely energy efficient, the building either. So
no, it's very, very difficult. And if you're in the hospitality trade, good news, how you can't suddenly hoof up all the cost of your food, can you? You've got rising costs everywhere you look.
Yeah, people are struggling already, aren't they, before this even bites properly. So you can't be passing it on, else you're going to lose business. And we're going to fast forward into the R word, which none of us like to discuss, because I think we talk ourselves into it sometimes, don't we?
Totally agree. Well, let's go. Thanks ever so much for that, Sam. Let's go over to you, Guy. What have you picked out in the papers?
Yeah. Well, I was trying to avoid the cost of living and find a different story. But actually, before I do, because you just mentioned hospitality, one of the stories I did find actually was about hospitality and about how, particularly in the hospitality trade, they're really struggling to get a price, and where they're being asked for a £10,000 deposit. So small businesses that are already struggling are just making it even harder. But the story, I think one of the other things we've seen going on just recently is the issue about sewage discharge and kind of the impact of that in storm drainage. And one little story I did pick out was an article in The Guardian about how water harvesting and how obviously we get whilst it might not feel like it at the moment, we get a fair bit of rain in the UK, and how potentially we can be saving up to 40% of our domestic water bills. Another of those sort of basic utilities were we to capture water, and the most simplest way it talks about obviously is the water butt that we're aware of, but actually you can have more sophisticated systems that harvest that rainfall and run through toilets and washing machines, whatever, which is sort of 30% or so of a household water usage. Talks about in much more widespread in Germany, where I think they've got about nearly 2 million households where this is the norm. But whilst not only does it obviously reduce your water bills, and the incentives that they seem to use there are that you don't therefore pay the discharge cost to the water industry, but of course obviously it's reducing massively that excess pressure that's going through the systems, and is what's been causing that runoff. So and that really struck me, as actually, because obviously as a housing provider we're looking at what it is that we're able to do to improve the sort of thermal efficiency of our homes and improve it, but actually it's an area that's often not looked at. And so that was one that really struck me. And again, just go back to I suppose the cost of living one. Another sort of more sort of human response I saw was just actually kind of that local groundswell of how people can support. So there's a call in Cornwall where we know there's quite a lot of second homes, for second homeowners to be able to, a simple scheme for them to be able to put the sort of £400 rebate that they're going to be able to get back into a simple fund that can be distributed locally, and we've seen over the last few years how those local initiatives to support communities can actually make a massive difference. And so whilst the government is sitting around working out what it's going to do, if anything at all, actually it's good to see those kind of local initiatives that aren't imposing on people, but give those people that feel that they can perhaps share, support some of the people in the community, that they can do so. Because that's what we're seeing on the ground is communities helping one another, and simple schemes like that in Cornwall that's been referenced, a good example of what can be done. It's not going to save a fortune, but every little bit does really make a difference at this point for those households.
I don't know about you guys, but with when they said about banning hose pipes and stuff, we've been putting buckets in the shower, and put a bucket between your legs where you're standing there washing out. It's amazing actually how much money how much water you save. And we put 2 or 3 buckets on the garden every night just to keep it all going. Anyway, thanks ever so much for that, Guy. Let's go back over to you, Patricia. And what have you picked out from the papers, please?
I picked out the GCSE results that came out yesterday in the Daily Telegraph, and the widening gap between the north and the south. It seems that GCSEs have been marked down slightly this year to take account of the inflation over the past couple of years, so it's gone down a couple of percent, but there seems to be a widening gap between north and south divide, and they're talking about the impact of COVID on perhaps lower income homes, and the ability to gain access to IT and software necessary to study. And we found that obviously during the last 2 years, GCSEs and the ability to focus on subject areas, etc., has decreased, and it's a worrying trend, isn't it?
Because there's all these different things now. You've got GCSEs, you've got A levels, you've got T levels. How does that affect, with regards to recruitment and people, looking to recruit? Is it still as relevant, or does everyone want a university degree nowadays?
There's a piece actually in there as well, isn't it, saying that the government seems to be pushing everyone down the degree route or the education system. And I think there's many different options for young people as they come out of full-time education, isn't there, that should be considered. I think just at the moment, in the environment we're at the moment, with a very high level of job vacancies available to us and not enough people, it won't have such a big impact, because people are hopefully considering different ways of bringing people on board and training them and developing their skill set, etc., to get them into employment, because we are struggling so highly with getting the right people in post. I always say to young people, it's just a process of the next stage, and there are always things you can do to add strings to your bow or to restudy, etc., etc. So I don't think it's should be seen from the young generation, the end of things if they were to get lower grades. But more of concern for me is the the effect that we've had over the past 2 years with the being able to access studies. Schools have been on lockdown. At home there hasn't always been the space and the availability of computer equipment to study, and they've had a hell of a ride, haven't they? Hell of a rough ride.
I think it's the soft skills. That's the big problem with a lot of young people. They haven't learned to communicate, haven't had the job experience, and they're going to businesses. And not being funny, some of them find it really hard to communicate, or even look at someone in the face, shake their hand, and smile. I get that all the time.
Yeah, my son went to do work experience a couple of weeks ago, and I taught him how to shake a hand properly, and he said, I have shaken a hand before, yeah, but not in a professional sense. But I mean, in these last 2 years of COVID as well, they haven't had that interaction to be able to put those sort of skills in place anyway. And it was, as you say, struggling beforehand, weren't we? And I think it has had a major impact on interpersonal skills, on the ability to make eye contact and behave in a professional type environment when they do go into employment, unfortunately.
Totally. Thanks ever so much for that. Great. Let's go over to Gethin. Hi there, mate.
Hello there. Hi, good morning. Just picking up, really carrying on from the theme that Sam started really with the cost of living. I picked up a story here in the Telegraph, deep in the bowels of it, which says that back holiday flights are down 20% on pre-pandemic rates, and I guess that's indicative follow-on, isn't it? You know, Sam, you spoke about the fact that even those that can't afford the increasing costs of fuel and everything else, they are in themselves making decisions that change other aspects of their life in order to accommodate it. And it would appear that jetting off on holiday, according to the Telegraph here, you know, is one of those decisions that people are taking to cut back on those expenses.
What else have you picked out there, mate?
I guess it's almost like an and finally part, really, having gone down the line, the traditional sort of light-hearted piece. Something in The Guardian caught my eye, particularly as I'm a food-dedicated kind of person. It appears that scientists have now found a specific part of the brain that actually focuses in on finding food. Now, they thought that this was kind of a bit of a myth previously, apparently. So the article tells me, because food looks so different, you know, sometimes it runs around, sometimes it hangs on trees and so on. They thought that it wouldn't be a specific neural center in the brain that would look at this, but according to a team based in the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, or MIT, they've found an actual part of the brain that is solely dedicated to finding food. I kind of think that was a nice and finally to round the section off.
Well, it's funny. I must have a big slice of that in my brain, and because I'm always thinking about food. Apparently, I wake up with my wife and say, "What's for tea?"
Yeah.
There's a piece in the I think it's the Sun today. I'll see if I can show it. It says, "Here comes the fried." This is a 3-tiered burger, right? They've designed for weddings.
For weddings. What sort of wedding?
For weddings, mate.
Oh,
it's not the type of wedding that you and I might like to go to, but you know, everyone's to their own thing. It's wedding couples can enjoy the breaded bliss of this triple tier burger instead of a traditional cake. It has a 14-inch beef patty cheeseburger at the bottom, a 12-inch chicken patty version in the middle, and a veggie alternative on top. It's all sponsored by Heinz. They're the brains behind it, as you can imagine. And this was to celebrate National Burger Day yesterday.
yeah. Does it come, Mark, with a free ambulance outside?
Nice.
I think it should. Apparently, it feeds 30. Anyway, thanks ever so much for that. It's funny, I'd like to go back to you, Gethin, actually, because we were talking about jobs and we were talking about recruitment of young people and the Golden Valley development. You just launched your new video, haven't you? Where you're trying to look at getting 12,000 jobs maybe created at the Golden Valley, getting more people into cyber.
Yes, the video that came out on Tuesday was designed really to inspire people to look at cyber as a realistic career opportunity and to show the breadth of opportunity that there is within the cyber industry. It kind of goes into a little bit more of it in the video, but it's in fact showing that it's not all about coding, it's not all about those stereotypical perhaps views that we often have of, you know, people in dark rooms hammering away on keyboards incessantly. You know, there's a lot more to it than that. There's a big wide remit of things, and you know, and all of the support services that those organizations require as well. So, you know, trying to reach out to those people that are interested in marketing, in social media, who want to be a lawyer, an accountant. All of those roles have a massively important place in the cyber ecosystem. Yeah, we put it out this week in between A-level results last week and GCSE results this week, to try and inspire the young people in Gloucestershire and Cheltenham specifically to you know, let them know that there are opportunities coming. And I guess by the time they've gone through a you know, whatever they want to do to complete their education pathway, that there is going to be something there for them at the end, and something that's going to keep them in the town of Cheltenham, or indeed into the county of Gloucestershire, and show that, you know, we don't have to have the brain drain to, you know, cities like Manchester or London, etc. that there are, massive opportunity right here in Gloucestershire.
It's looking very exciting. I mean, obviously you've taken on this role. You've been there for 4 months now. Where do you start? Where do you start marketing such a huge project? I mean, it's 200 hectare development. It's going to be 3,700 homes. It's going to be UK's Cyber Innovation Centre. Where's your beginning point, Gethin?
Well, if I'd known that, I'd have started it on that about 3 months ago. But I guess the initial part of my role is to try and discover the important parts that are important to the people of Cheltenham and beyond. So, I mean, clearly we've got we're going to be starting now into the consultation phase. So we need to engage the citizens, particularly of West Cheltenham, where the development is going to be happening, but also Cheltenham as a whole to reach out to them and get their views and feedback on what they want. Going back to Sam's earlier story about the cost of living, and we need to look at how fuel efficient or energy efficient the homes that we develop there are. Clearly, there are massive implications there for making a sustainable development, but we need to look at other things, in the environmental impact of the work that we do. Where do we source the materials from? So there's telling all of those messages. Then there's the water runoff, as we discussed also. I think Guy, you raised the point about water harvesting and things like that. So how do we landscape the land in between the buildings to ensure that there's adequate water capture and that we don't just disperse a problem onto something else? So there's the sustainability message there. You mentioned about the homes. Then yes, there's 3,700 homes that we intend to build within the development. How do we construct those in terms of what value will they be at the end? There are obvious issues around rising house prices, and that's nationwide, but particularly here in Cheltenham as well. How do we enhance the housing stock without doing anything to have any detrimental impact? We're adding additional housing, and we need to make those attractive, and we need to make those affordable as well. So there's all sorts of messages in and around it. As you pointed out, Mark, it is a massive project, and there is one single start point is the point that I think there's going across to me.
The big question for me, obviously being a marketeer as well, is have you got a budget?
I'm sure there will be. We're obviously at the start of a contract with the developers, so yeah, we're having a discussion on that, and I'm sure that when we do have a budget, I dare say Punchline will be one of the first people that we call.
God, I'm loving you more and more. Thanks. With that, we'll finish on a high there. Let's go back over to you, Sam. And talk about your members and the way that things are panning out at the moment. I mean, we talked about the cost of living. There's so many different pressure points. What are the members telling you?
Well, again, I'm not a gloomy person, as you know, Mark, but it isn't good. I mean, you reported, I think yesterday, about the Chambers of Commerce have done a big report saying about how difficult it is. The Institute of Directors have got one coming out as well, I think, saying exactly the same. And we just did a recent a quarterly report about business confidence, and it's really, really low. And the amount of businesses that are planning to invest is shrinking all the time. And there's so many facets to this. I think it is the cost of living crisis. It is the fact that, we haven't long gone over COVID. So we all mentioned hospitality businesses particularly, and they got through the worst 2 years of their life and thought, well, at least now we know where we are. And they're all struggling. They're all struggling because you have this terrible dilemma, and you must face this, Mark, that your costs are going up. But if you start increasing the charges to your customers, they can't afford to pay them, so they'll look elsewhere. And I was reminded, I like watching Gogglebox, if any of you watch Gogglebox. And a while ago, there was a couple watching the news, and they were hearing about the cost of living crisis a few months ago. And one of them turns to the other and says, I already shop at Lidl. Where else is there to go? And I know we joke about it, but it's absolutely true. It's hitting you from all different angles. And Patricia mentioned about recruitment and how difficult that is, and that's another factor. So I come back to my hospitality people, and I remember talking to somebody who ran a cafe in Gloucestershire a little while ago, And they were saying that they've had to give their staff 3 increases this year alone just to keep them from going somewhere else. Now, if I'm paying my staff more and more and more, I can't charge you £1.50 for your cup of tea anymore. It's got to be £2. But then if I'm charging you £2, you might be thinking, I can't afford this anymore. So it's difficult, Mark. It's a tricky situation. I don't think business has really entered the discussion in all this talk about who's going to be the next prime minister, and they could be in for a shock because business is struggling.
Well, I think the thing is that you won't employ so many people, or you won't be able to open so often. So you might only open 3 or 4 days a week.
Indeed.
And you might do it with a lot less staff. And if your husband and wife team run a little cafe, you might only have one other person working with you.
Exactly as it is.
Just slow it down like that. Thanks ever so much for that, Sam. I'm going to go over to you, Guy. And do you want to explain about Gloucester City Homes? Give us a kind of overview.
We're social landlord in Gloucester, so we have about 5,000 homes predominantly across actually just a sort of 5 square mile area. So we've got a few beyond that, but actually we have and our remit is to make housing affordable, really, and we try to keep, and it's exactly that dilemma actually we've just been talking about. So our costs are obviously rising. The cost of us maintaining those homes is increasing significantly, but we know that our customers, people living in our homes, are often on the very lowest of incomes, and actually every penny really does count. We've always had part of our we've had colleagues within the team who are there to walk alongside our customers, really to support them so that they can make their money go as far as it possibly can, so that they can. We encourage them to encourage people to talk to us if they are struggling before they struggle, so that we can help tap them into what's out there. But what we're seeing, of course, is that more and more people are suddenly struggling. So people who have sort of been just about kind of have been managing and haven't had to struggle in the past are suddenly kind of facing challenges and just don't know where to go, don't know who to talk to, don't know where to go. And so for us, of course, it's that time, how do we make sure that those people are getting the support that they need, they are tapped into the resources in the system, but also how do we make sure that we keep our costs as low as we possibly can? And that's the dilemma for every business, isn't it? But what we do sort of pride ourselves on largely employing local people, and our homes are maintained predominantly by our own workforce that we're recruiting. And absolutely, we are really struggling to recruit into some of those roles where it's important to get really good trades people into those posts if we're going to maintain that quality of service. But they're hard to come by. That's a perfect place and a perfect opportunity to link over to Patricia now. That's okay, Guy. Thanks ever so much for that. Patricia, I mean, you've been in business 25 years. Have you ever seen it like this before?
Wow.
No, it's very much in recruitment. It's either one or the other. So more jobs than people, or more people than jobs. So I've been through 2 recessions, credit crunch, and earlier, and it really. I mean, we're absolutely crazily busy with people looking for employees, and we are on the phone building networks of people and communicating with candidates from all walks of life to try and get them into employment to assist our clients, and they're battering the door down wanting more and more people, which is a fantastic position to be in from the point of view of a recruitment agency. But my staff are working so hard and finding that people are getting counter offers, people are moving very, very quickly, so they'll be offered an interview the next day and they'll go to one on the same afternoon and get offered that job role, for example. So things are extremely fluid. I can't see that what we've got at the moment at all is sustainable. There's also a demand for more flexible working and higher wages, etc., which is also having an impact. And I think moving forward, there has to be a change somewhere, or else, as somebody said just now, I think it was Sam or Guy, that, you know, we are going to have fewer and fewer people employed, but doing more. And that's going to put major stress on the people that are in employment, and businesses aren't going to be able to afford to buy, you know, to buy in those skill sets, to have a broad service offering. So yeah, it's going to have a major impact.
I've heard of people being offered jobs, and there was one company I talked to. They had 5 jobs. The people didn't turn up.
Yeah.
Just didn't turn up for the day.
Yeah, we're getting that. Yeah.
We had one person told me that they had all this stuff in the office. You know, they bought them a new stapler and a new rubber and a pencil and cleaned out the desk and did everything else, and the person just didn't show up.
Yeah.
And they said, "Oh no, I've gone somewhere else."
Yeah. Just
We
really,
had 2 this week, didn't it?
really
Just
quick.
like that. Yeah.
2
really
guys.
decision-making.
And what type of roles are we talking about, Guy?
There were 2 types of roles. One I think was sort of fairly traditional sort of office-based role, and one was one of those sort of multi-trade sort of kind of operative. Again, they've got multiple offers. They're sort of choosing on the day, I think, almost.
Yeah, so we do particularly well building relationships with people, so supporting them through the whole process and making sure that they get there and start employment. But we're seeing a massive increase in people changing their minds and going for more money, or, you know, more flexible working, or closer to home, or whatever the reasons are. We're also seeing a lot to do with mental health. You know, people have been affected quite badly, very badly over the past couple of years, and that shows up in their work life as well as their personal life. So we've put in place, certainly if someone's temping or working for us direct in the office, we have mental health support lines and access to GPs free of charge, etc., to support them through the process to get in front of someone and start a job role. But it is really, really tough out there.
God, I can't imagine it. Count yourself so lucky in some aspects as well. Thanks ever so much. I'm kind of running out of time, guys, already. So let's quickly wrap up with what's caught your eye in this week's Punchline. We're going to go to you, Gethin. What's caught your eye in this week's Punch?
Moving away from perhaps the concerning stories, the one that stood out for me on a very happy and positive note is the scanner appeal. So all the fundraising that has been done for the CT scanner in Gloucester Hospital, and they seem to have hit their massive landmark figure of £500,000, and that means that they've got just a very small amount of 100,000 left to get a new CT scanner, which is tremendous progress. And I know a lot of people that have done various sort of fun runs and various challenges to try and contribute to that. So massive congratulations to everyone that's done that.
No, thank you. No, it was a great positive story, wasn't it? £500,000. And very, very good. Thanks for that. Patricia, what's caught your eye in this week's Punchline?
I chose the possible flotation of EV cargo at the rodeo, which is about a mile, well, not even a mile from my house at Morton Valence. And they're talking about a possible stock market flotation at a value of 1 billion. Or 1 billion plus. So the company was first started in 1955 by Conrad Downton, and I just think, you know, they've gone from strength to strength. The business was sold 3 years ago, I think, and now it's heading for the stock market, either in the UK or Hong Kong, they've mentioned, or maybe even the US. So great news.
Absolutely amazing, isn't it? Absolutely amazing success story. Family-run business as well. I remember meeting the owners a couple of years ago before they sold up. Yeah. Thanks ever so much for that. Totally agree. Great story. Guy, what's caught your eye in this week's Punch, please?
I was struck actually by the number of stories this week about new homes coming to Gloucestershire, but Gloucester specifically, actually. So it started the week with 3 homes that we've just built on a little site in Matson, where traditionally been a whole lot of fly tipping. So making use of the space that's there. And I think you've got at the end of the week the £30 million development down Baker Quay, and actually almost each day there was a new story about new homes popping up, all scales and all extremes. So it's really interesting to see the sort of the scale of investment. And obviously, Gethin, you've been talking about the schemes too there. So many new homes coming into Gloucestershire. Hopefully, a good proportion of them being affordable.
Will they bring the house prices down?
I doubt it.
Doubt it very much. No, thanks very much for picking those. Sam, what's caught your eye in this week's plan?
Similar actually. I'm trying to be positive as well, because there are so many negative ones around. I was pleased to see that they've released details of the first of few apartments at the Forum, because rather like the Golden Valley for Cheltenham and for the whole of Gloucestershire, which would be fantastic, the Forum is going to be great for Gloucester. And I think at the moment we're all caught up in the traffic jams around there, and it looks like it is a building site. So when you hear that they're actually now officially starting to build things, you start thinking, right, light at the end of the tunnel. And I think that'd be great news for Gloucester and for Gloucestershire.
It's quite funny. That's right opposite Guy's office, probably as well.
There you go.
Yeah.
Bloody
We've got
nightmare.
25 of our own coming up alongside that too, that I think you covered a couple of weeks back, and you were together with Aqua Construction. So again, good to see a really exciting sort of mixed development in that space that will totally transform Gloucester.
And especially when you think about what a sort of derelict area it's been for like 15 years. And that's the same thing with Baker's Quay. And that's my story of the week, actually. Our Baker's Quay coming on board, £30 million. Got to take your hat off Roxby Development for sticking with it through, really difficult times. And then, of course, we got the Forum coming on board as well, which is very exciting with their apartments going on. That's my pick of the week too. Guys, thank you ever so much for joining Punchline Talks. If you like the show, please like, share and subscribe. And I'd just like to thank our fantastic sponsors, Hazelwoods, accountants and business advisors. I'd like to thank my amazing panel. And if you like the show, please carry on watching Punchline. Thanks very much. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.